Hey guys, it's Vanguard here for MMOBomb.com. Today I'm going to do a first impression gameplay video for Vanguard, Saga of Heroes, a newly free-to-play MMORPG published by Sony Online Entertainment. And I'll spend about 15-20 minutes or so, of course, checking out the game, making some comments. If you guys want to learn more about Vanguard, you guys can check down below at MMOBomb.com for the full review/information. So to begin with here, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the classes as well as the races. Vanguard features a total of 19 different races and 15 classes. However, for free-to-play users, you guys are restricted to just 6 races and 7 classes. The other classes are available and races are available to play. However, they're only available to play up to level 20 for free-to-play users, unfortunately. So you are restricted right off the bat to 6 races and 7 classes. That's still a lot. I mean, if you think about it, 7 classes, that's a lot of classes, and 6 races is a lot of races as well. But it's unfortunate that you get restricted from using like the really cool looking races. Like for example, you can't use any of the races that are like non-humanoid. So I couldn't be this like midget little wolf. I'd have to start with the like halfling, which is just like a midget little person. And then also you can choose like the thruster humans, etc. Now the humans, the different races themselves have different attributes. They have different attributes that are put into different points. Like some will have more intelligence or dexterity than others, and they get more points, you know, as they level up. They also each have a specific racial ability. For example, the half elf right here has the symbol of Jinn, which enables you to call upon the protective nature of Jinn, applying a rune and damage shield to your group. The barrier will absorb 10% of incoming spell damage. So each one of these classes, or each one of these races rather, will have a unique little racial ability that they can use as well, similar to a lot of other MMORPGs. So to begin with here, I'm going to go ahead and choose just a halfling, because why not? Why not be a little midget guy? And on the right hand side here, we can actually pick our certain class that we want to use. So there are 4 different kind of subgroups of classes. We have the protective fighters, which are kind of like the tanks, offensive fighters, which are of course DPS classes, physical DPS I should say. Those 2 playable classes, the rogue and monk, with the protective warrior, the warrior being the actual protective fighter that you can play that is free to play completely. Then in the healer classes, you guys can be a monk a cleric or a disciple. You also have the shaman and the blood mage available for healer if you pay. And then as far as caster goes, you guys can choose from the sorcerer and the necromancer class. I'm going to go ahead and choose the necromancer because that seems pretty interesting, a little different. There's only a few MMORPGs that have necromancer class, and I'm kind of curious to see what actually Vanguard does for that. Now at the top here, we can actually choose our first and last name. Being that this is a very RPG-centric MMORPG, it's very heavily based and influenced by Dungeons & Dragons. Of course, you want to have your character have a first and last name. So I'm going to choose Spunkify, and then I'm going to choose a lot as my last name. Spunkify a lot. He spunkifies a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, and then click Next. And then I get to choose where I want to actually start my journey. Now, I tried to do this video yesterday, but I couldn't choose hometown because it actually crashed the game every single time I went there. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose Isle of Dawn, which is just like a medium area, not the hometown of my little halfling guys, and see what's like over there. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Telon here, which is of course the US or North American server. The Holgar is the European server if you guys are from Europe. So the game is of course worldwide based. You guys can play from anywhere. You just choose one of the 2 servers, whichever one's appropriate. Now there are quite a lot of different options to choose from as far as customizing your character. 8 in total subgroups here, and you can customize everything from eye color, the eye size, eye height, etc. And this is the same for every single one of these. You just kind of randomize them as well. You can randomize them independently of each other, so you can randomize certain elements that are completely different from the whole body, etc. I'm going to randomize my head. Why not? Alright, there we go. Get myself to look a little bit different here. I kind of want a mustache. There we go. Give myself a little mustache. We can do better than that mustache. Let's see what we got. There we go. Little coif in the back and a nice little mustache up front. You can even save this as a template if you want. So you can actually spend a lot of time here creating your characters, making them look how you want. I'm going to go ahead and finish this character though. And then it gives a little brief backstory here of the Isle of Dawn, which was separated from the continent of Kojan during the Cataclysm. Since this is a heavily RPG game, there are going to be a lot of crazy names in the game. Different things that are kind of be hard to pronounce for me, most likely. So let's go ahead and jump in this game here. Hopefully it loads up here in a second here of this white screen. I don't know why they just have like a white screen as a loading screen. Like not even like a description, just like, hey, it's a white screen, you're going to get in the game. And now we're jumped in the game. So, and there's a guy on my head. What are you? Okay, there, citizen. Get off of me. No, Kizam is his name. And that tree just randomly fell down there. So it looks like that guy just cut down that tree. Got to talk to Tanfen, Great Cloud. And go talk to Kiri Tantris, looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that quest there. Alright, now because I'm a necromancer, I do have necromancy skills. What do I have here? I have Bone Spike, which throws a bone. I have Power of the Grave, which looks like some type of buff. Then I have Awaken Abomination. Awakens an Abomination. Oh, I am totally doing that. So I'm going to Awaken an Abomination here. Hopefully bring up my little pet minion, since this seems to be a pet class. And bam! Look, there's my Abomination. As you can see here, I also have this little skill bar here where I can command my pet to do various different things. There's my Racial Ability Shroud of the Veil, and then Sprint, so everybody does get a sprint to begin with here. Alright, so now I need to go to you and complete my quest. And let's see, I gotta listen to your story now, right? So I'm just gonna click through the story here. There's a lot of lore that's actually enveloped into the game, so if you guys are huge lore buffs, or you like the Dungeons and Dragons style of lore, then I highly recommend, trying this out, because this does tickle your fancy. This is very driven by story and by lore and by, different, interactions between the different races, etc. So now it looks like I got to report to Six Fish, so I'm just going to go over to Six Fish here. The game is set up to maximum right now. It uses the Unreal 2.5 engine, and although it does use that engine, and the game did come out in 2007, I have to say that because it went for like a realistic look, the game has not aged well at all. Keep in mind it was pay to play up until a couple days ago, so this was something that you had to pay for regularly. But I feel like this game, unlike World of Warcraft, who went with a more comical style of look, is definitely not aged the same, because essentially those two games are the same age. Then again, also World of Warcraft has had more money to invest in upgrading the engine, etc. This has gone from a much more realistic look, almost like an EverQuest 2 look to it. Alright, so what do I gotta do here? I gotta kill 5 of these podlings and collect some seeds. So here's a podling here, and a little bit of lag there. Here's a podling here, so I'm gonna use my Bone Spike, and I believe I can tell my guy to attack that as well. Alright. So wow, he does a lot of damage there. Abomination, you look so cute. Let me look at you. Look at him. Kind of looks like something from like some kind of anime, almost like Evangelion or like maybe Spider-Man. I don't know. Alright, so let's go ahead and use these attacks here on these podlings. Oh, don't you dare take that. Did he take it? Ah, damn, he did take it. Alright, so let's see if I can get this one out. I also need to buff myself. So there are some restrictions for free-to-play users besides the normal stuff. Obviously, would be like cosmetic stuff you can buy in shops, cash shops, etc. But the game also features, like, for example, a in-game advertisement to become a member. So there's this button above your head here, which if I clicked on this, it would say, hey, you would pay $14.99 a month to play the game. Sure, go ahead and do that. Now, there are only 2 pay actual structures. There's a free-to-play structure, and there's a $15 a month structure. There's nothing in between. You can't just like buy little microtransaction upgrades like you can in like DC Universe Online, which is also Sony Online Entertainment MMORPG. In that game, you can buy kind of content updates, and that kind of unlocks some of the features for you. However, in this game, let's see, I want this to always assist. Yeah, there we go. So in this game, however, you have to either pay $14.99 a month, or you go ahead and actually do the free-to-play. Now, as a free-to-play user, you do get access to max level, which is level 55 in the game. You also get 4 character slots, but things that are limited are, for example, you can only have 15 quests in your log at any time. And most people are like, oh, 15 quests, that's not too bad. However, there is different quest systems in the game. If I bring up my quest inventory here, if I can take a look at it, my quest log, as you can see, these are my adventuring quests. There's also the crafting and diplomacy, work orders, and work orders as well. So there are basically 4 different tabs of quests here. Crafting and diplomacy are 2 separate systems that have their own leveling system. They also have their own gear, so you use separate gear there to increase those levels. If you put better gear in those areas, or if you use better gear for crafting, for diplomacy, you have a higher chance of succeeding in that. And those crafting, of course, is just craft different items, weapons, enchantments, etc. The diplomacy thing is something that's a little bit more unique to Vanguard, and essentially allows you to engage in politics with other players or other NPCs, and this increases things and gives you like citywide buffs that everybody takes advantage of. For example, I think this is one right here, which is Might of Vothadar, which is civic diplomacy benefit, which gives you a plus melee and range damage bonus. That is something that someone actually did, and when they were actually able to complete that kind of negotiation, that diplomatic negotiation, a buff was provided to everybody in the area when that came in. So those are the kind of buffs that you can expect out of diplomatic stuff, which requires different quests, of course, and different items, different like gear essentially. And it's cool that they have different gear for different settings, but it's unfortunate that as a free-to-play user, you can only use 15 quests at a time. You're also limited by the amount of coin that you can carry, which is, I believe, 2 platinum. I don't really know what 2 platinum is. There's not really like a measurement of how much gold that is. How much gold do I have exactly right now? I have 10 silver right now, so you can get a total of 2 platinum, which I believe is right here. But as a pay-to-play user, you can get a unlimited gold. So no one really knows. I don't really know rather how much gold or how much stuff 2 platinum could buy you. But it's safe to assume that once you get up to really high levels, 2 platinum could be like very little amount of gold in general. So unfortunately, they could be very difficult to buy certain things because you have that limited cap. Alright, so now I need to go train. So I believe on the map, as you can see here, I can zoom in. The little training icon is there on the left. So I need to go learn some new spells. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over this way. And why not? I'm going to buff myself as well. Oh, right-clicking on it actually allows you to make a macro. Alright, so if you right-click on that, you can make a macro. So that does have macro systems engaged. But I'm just going to go ahead and self-buff that on myself. And it gives me some constitution and intelligence. Awesome. So here's the spellcaster instructor. Do you have everything you want to train me with? And they do. Ranged attack. Okay, I'll train that. And also torment. So directs tormenting spirits to attack the soul of your opponent, slowing movement by 50, inflicting 300 to 318 damage. Dang, that seems like it's a lot of damage for this level. Alright, so let's go ahead and go train and continue that. And then complete this, we're going to actually get a staff, a new staff, which is awesome. And then we need to return to the veteran 6-fish. Alright, so let's go ahead and exit out of that and bring it up. Now, other notable restrictions on the game. Of course, there's a limited back slots. As you can see, these back slots are actually grayed out. I only can have 2 back slots here, unfortunately, 2 base inventory slots. Other things that are limited are your broker system and the in-game mail. Rather, they're not limited, but you do have to pay actually extra gold to perform those actions. So somebody may normally just pay 5 copper to send a auction off, or to create an auction, or to send mail, it would cost you 1 silver or something like that. Banks are also limited. You only have access to 25 slots in your bank versus I believe 75 for a pay-to-play user. And there are certain things that you don't have any access to, such as like the in-game housing and the brotherhoods. Now the housing, how the housing works in the system, looks like we actually have to go kill some more individuals here, as well as drive back some other types of mature Gataros. So I think I have to kill these marsh dwellers. Let's try out our new skill here. So if I hit 6 here, I can actually do this tormented souls, which says, no, I don't want to wake him up. How do I cancel this? I don't want to get, okay, so I can't like cancel this new attack. So I'm like bringing up a new abomination, unfortunately. All right, so let's go ahead and just cast my attack here then. Boom. All right, so we did get taken out. How am I doing up there? Can I see how much HP? I'm sure that is something in the system, the system settings that I can change. But looks like I have HP, mana, and then I'm not sure. I think this is my pet's health as well. Alright, so we gotta actually make these guys feared away, I believe. We use the Gataru Repellent. To wave in the Gataru Repellent, just get away from here. So it's gonna make him run away, no problem. But like I was saying here, you don't have access to brotherhoods or housing. Now that wouldn't be, some people are like, I don't really care about housing, but one of the most unique features about this game is the world is completely persistent. What I mean by that is there's only a few instances of actual instancing going on in the game, meaning that there's no loading screens, and even the dungeons and raids themselves for the most part are above ground or below ground and in the persistent world, meaning you don't phase into anything to do those. You actually just go to a particular area of the map, and those are where those mobs and bosses are located, which makes it a really interesting experience and definitely more of a persistent, mature, open world experience. Something that I think a lot of MMOs miss nowadays because of the fact that instancing does make it easier for people to actually complete quests or complete dungeons because they're not fighting over spawns. But if you like the idea of fighting over spawns and the idea of competing over those areas, then most certainly doing those types of dungeons which are open world is something to look forward to. Now housing is exactly the same. The way the housing works, where are these guys? I need a marsh dweller. There you are. Housing, the way housing works is you actually pick a plot of land, and when you pick a plot, can I use this yet? Come on. Come on, a little closer. Maybe I can do a bone. Come on. What's going on? Is it lagging? Man, I had this problem with it yesterday where it was lagging, unfortunately. The game doesn't seem to be handling the lag too well, or rather the increase of players as a free-to-play. Which, if you expected a game to go free-to-play, you should expect the lag, to be something that you need to compensate for. Sony Online Entertainment has actually had the experience of working with multiple games of theirs that have gone free-to-play. I mean, you have DC Universe Online, EverQuest 1 and 2. So they should have expected, a huge influx of players wanting to try out the game, or just wanting to give the game a proper try now that it is free-to-play. and it's unfortunate to see, especially, you know, in the starting area that doesn't seem to have a lot of people in it, you know, some lag actually available in the game. But like I was saying, the housing actually is persistent world. You buy a plot of land, you actually can then buy, you know, actually your house and put additional items in that, invite other people in there, and other people can actually walk by and actually see that plot of land of yours in that actual building. Saying actual a lot there. So yeah, there's a pretty unique little aspect, and free-to-play users don't get any actual access to that. In addition, they don't have access to what are called brotherhoods, and what a brotherhood is like a more intuitive or long-lasting party. And the way those work is you get in a brotherhood, and if you're offline but someone else in the brotherhood is online and they complete quests, and I can go ahead and turn this back. They complete quests, they complete different dungeons, etc., and get that experience. You also get that experience in gold while you're offline, making it very easy to sort of multi-level with individuals who are on a different time schedule. You'll come on level, you'll have gained levels because they've done quests, and you guys can just share that and not have to worry about only playing for a certain limited amount of time, because both of you are on two very different time schedules. It makes it really useful too if you have a lot of friends that are like in Europe and you guys both play on the same server, and you know, they're only online at night whereas you're sleeping, etc. like that. So let's go ahead and turn in this quest here to Veteran Sixfish. What kind of a name is Sixfish here? And go ahead and get some bracers, it looks like. So let's go ahead and complete that. And I have now level 3. Awesome. So it looks like I need to go aid the hermit now, which is somewhere in the marsh, I guess. So let's go ahead and equip these new items there. Got me some fancy bracers. It looks like there's actually quite a lot of necromancers. I guess because necromancer is one of the more unique classes for free-to-play users, unfortunately. That's why you're going to see so many of them. Let's see, I can even do an ability here which allows him to sneer. And I can also graph things on him as well, I guess, to give him different attributes. Do you have any new abilities I can learn? Anything you can teach me? Drain life, level 4? Nope, can't do it yet, but you are going to be able to do drain life. Now let's see here. Looks like if I hit K, it actually does like a small little lantern ability around me, but I'm not actually holding a lantern, so it looks a little strange. Alright, what other notable limitations are there for this free-to-play game? Well, one of the biggest ones would have to be the fact that you can only get uncommon gear at max level. And so it's basically like green gear, I guess. You can get common and then uncommon gear. Beyond that, for a free-to-play user, you're not going to be able to get like rares and epics, I believe, for the most part, which is really, really discouraging. People aren't going to take you in dungeons, let alone raids, if all you have is uncommon gear. You know, you're going to be a detriment to the actual team, which is really unfortunate to see. You know, it basically just makes it, hey, you can do, you know, the questing experience, and then that's it. And it just seems like they really are restricting you in the wrong ways as a free-to-play user. I really like the Aeon approach, where Aeon went free to play. They gave access to everything and just made everything cosmetic that you can basically purchase, or just ease of convenience. That's things that, you know, Sony could really do with Vanguard, especially since, I mean, let's be honest, Vanguard has not aged well. Vanguard is an older MMO using older style of play mechanics, you know, the old tried and true Dungeons and Dragons, you know, theme setting, and etc. There are interesting and unique aspects to the game, like there are flying mounts later in the game. No flying combat, I believe, but you do have the ability to fly around, different mounts to actually work with, etc. So there are definitely cool aspects of the game, but because the game came out in 2007, 5 years ago, and only recently went free to play, I would hope to see they adjusted their free to play settings fairly soon to accommodate for the fact that, you know, this game isn't, in my opinion, going to get a lot of the audience. Simply for the fact that there's better options, even there's better, you know, not European, but Asian options for free-to-play MMOs that don't have some of these glaring shortcomings in the game. I mean, this game has not aged well in terms of, like, what your abilities look like, what your character looks like, the animations. I mean, this is pretty sparse world looking, you know, not very lush, etc. The view distance isn't very far. I've got everything turned up to max, essentially, and yet my view distance is actually fairly short, as you can see. So those are really, really discouraging things to actually take note of. And for a free-to-play user, there's not really a lot of stuff enticing to bring in this game unless you really want a Dungeons and Dragons experience. And in that case, why not just play Dungeons and Dragons Online? It's a little bit of a different experience. You know, this is true. But overall, I just feel like there are better options in its current state than this game is. I mean, you might as well just go play EverQuest 2. You know, I think EverQuest 2 has better graphics, you know, better mechanics, etc. So let's go ahead and cast this Bone Spike. We did go ahead and kill that crocodile, but let's see here. Is there anything else interesting that we can talk about? What do we got down here? We can look at our abilities. You know, have abilities for both crafting and diplomacy, as you can see. Necromancy, Demand, Lay Blame. These each cost little points, you know, available. You can even put these that kind of use cards. So you basically put these cards in here, and these cards are actually how you go about doing diplomacy. Each one of them kind of counters whatever card the enemy player or the enemy individual places in contradiction. If we look at the map real quickly, we're currently on the Isle of Dawn, which is actually fairly large, as you can see. It's a pretty large area. Kogen and Quiley as well as Thestra are the 3 other continents. And one other unique little aspect I will touch on is that you can create your own ships that you can then sail around the different continents, etc. So you actually create your own ships for other people to actually join in on, and you guys can go around and sail around those continents themselves, which is pretty cool. Again, all persistent world, you know, those ships stay around, etc. It's a very cool system indeed. But you know, I'm probably going to go ahead and call it here for now, since I've gone ahead and go over the basics of the game. If you guys want to learn more in depth about Vanguard, you guys can check out the game profile on MMOBomb.com, as well as a full information, as well as breakdown of what I've just talked about. Free to play, you know, free to play restrictions and what you get, etc. Let's see if I can end this in a nice dance. There we go. Let's end that in a nice little dance there with my abomination pet. I'm dancing as a little halfling, no problem there. I'll see you guys next time though. This is Spunkify. Spunkify out.